Women's rights in Afghanistan have been varied throughout history. Women officially gained equality under the 1964 constitution. However, these rights were taken away in the 1990s through different temporary rulers such as the Taliban. During the civil war, especially during the latter's rule, women had very little to no freedom, specifically in terms of civil liberties. Ever since the Taliban regime was removed following the September 11 attacks in the United States, women's rights have gradually improved under the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and women are once again the Jew equal to men under the 2004 constitution, which was largely based on that from 1964. However, their rights are still complicated by a reactionary view on women by certain classes of school, particularly ruralites, which continue to cause international concern. When the Taliban took control of most of Afghanistan again in 2021, concern about the future for women in the country increased. Afghanistan is in South Asia and has a population of roughly 34 million. Of these, 15 million are male and 14.2 million are female. About 22% of the Afghan people are urbanite and the remaining 78% live in rural areas. As part of local tradition, most women are married soon after completing high school. Many live as housewives for the remainder of their lives. During the Durrani Empire and the early Barakzai dynasty, Afghan women customarily lived subjected in a state of purdah and gender segregation imposed by patriarchal customs. While this was the case in all Afghanistan, the customs did differ somewhat between different areas and ethnic groups. Nomad women, for example, did not have to hide their faces and even showed some of their hair. Women did not play any public role in society. However, there were some women who became noted as poets and writers, which was an art form possible for a woman to perform while living in the seclusion of the harem. The rulers of Afghanistan customarily had a harem of 4 official wives as well as a large number of unofficial wives for the sake of tribal marriage diplomacy. In addition to enslaved women known as Kanis and Surati, guarded by the Ghulam Bacha, some women had influence over the affairs of state from inside the royal harem. Notably Zair Ghongana, Miman Aisha and Babod Jan. Some rulers of Afghanistan have attempted to increase women's freedom. For the most part, these attempts were unsuccessful. However, there were a few leaders who were able to make some significant, if temporary, changes. The first of them was King Amanullah, who ruled from 1919 to 1929 and made some of the more noteworthy changes in an attempt to unify as well as modernize the country. He promoted freedom for women in the public sphere in order to lessen the control that patriarchal families exerted over women. King Amanullah stressed the importance of female education, along with encouraging families to send their daughters to school. He promoted the unveiling of women and persuaded them to adopt a more Western style of dress. In 1921, he created a law that abolished forced marriage, child marriage, and bride price, and put restrictions on polygamy, a common practice among households in the Afghanistan region. Modern social reform for Afghan women began when Queen Saraya, wife of King Amanullah, made rapid reforms to improve women's lives and their position in the family, marriage, education and professional life. She founded the first women's magazine, the first theatre for women in Paghman and the first hospital for women. Queen Saraya set an example for the abolition of gender segregation by appearing with her husband, famously removing her veil in public, and her example was followed by others. The king declared that the veil was optional, permitted Western clothes in Kabul and reserved certain streets for men and women wearing modern clothes. In 1928, Amanullah sent 15 female graduates of the Masturat Middle School, daughters of the royal family and government officials, to study in Turkey. Saraya Tazi was the only woman to appear on the list of rulers in Afghanistan, and was credited with having been one of the first and most powerful Afghan and Muslim female activists. However, Queen Saraya, along with her husband's advocacy of social reforms for women, led to a protest and contributed to the ultimate demise of her and her husband's reign in 1929. King Amanullah Khan's deposition caused a severe backlash, and his successor reinstated the whale and repealed the reforms in women's rights. Reinforcing purdah, the Women's Association as well as the Women's Magazine was banned. The girls' schools were closed. The female students who had been allowed to study in Turkey was recalled to Afghanistan and forced to put on the veil and enter purdah again. And polygamy for men was reintroduced. Successors Muhammad Nadir Shah and Muhammad Zahir Shah acted more cautiously, but nevertheless worked for the moderate and steady improve.